Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, good evening. Today is July 1st, 2020, and we officially started the second half of the year. And so far, it's been a I'd say a very good year, even though there's been many bad things happening. But it's been quite short because yes, it seems as though we just started the year yesterday. But nonetheless, it is good that that some of us are still alive, and so we are still able to thank God that so far we have life. And I hope that this second part of the second half of the year is a blessing for everyone, even though we have this bug going around, which we don't really know if it is true or not, but that's what they say in the media. I'm not sure if it's to keep people in fear, but nonetheless, it is a good thing that we should thank God for it because, as Psalm 91 says, 1,000 may fall at your left and 10,000 at your right, you will not be touched. You will only look and behold the destruction of the wicked. And so, if you're walking with God, then this shouldn't scare you. And it doesn't mean not to take precaution, but you should trust that you're gonna do everything you can and God will do the rest. And on that note, we're gonna start today's session on the book Fundamentals of Christian Education. And today we are looking at uh, Jesus Christ and Educator. And yes, today is July 1st, Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. And we're gonna start with this session. And it begins Christ and Educator. And so we're gonna figure out how did Jesus Christ approach education. The human mind is susceptible of the highest cultivation. A life devoted to God should not be a life of ignorance. Many speak against education because Jesus chose uneducated fishermen to preach his gospel. They assert that he showed preference for the uneducated. Many learned and honorable men believed his teaching. Had these fearlessly obeyed the convictions of their consciences, they would have followed him, meaning Jesus Christ. Their abilities would have been accepted and employed in the service of Christ had they offered them. But they had not moral powers in face of the frowning priests and jealous rulers to confess Christ and venture their reputation in connection with the humble Galilean. He who knew the hearts of all understood this. If the educated and noble would not do the work they were qualified to do, Christ would select men who would be obedient and faithful in doing his will. He chose humble men and connected them with himself that he might educate them to carry forward the great work on earth when he should leave it. And I think that's a misconception. Yes, Jesus Christ didn't go to school, meaning of the learned men of his day. He was a carpenter all his life until he began his ministry at the age of 30. That's in Luke chapter 3, just for reference. And we know that he chose the 12 disciples, some of them Bartholomew, Peter, James, John, uh, the other James, because there were two James, you know, Judas, Matthew. But if you look at these men, they were all fishermen, and they had no education. They didn't go. I don't know if they were illiterate, but I know for sure they did not go to school to be learned and have nowadays a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. And people might assume that because Jesus Christ used these men, it is because he prefers people that are uneducated. But as you can see, it's not the case. He wanted to use, actually, I think Jesus Christ once wanted to use people that are educated more than uneducated people. But people that are educated, they fall into that mindset of, I know already, I don't want to be taught anymore. And I think these people are actually, I would call them fools or unwise. And so what Jesus Christ did is, what he did, he just bypassed the rulers. He just bypassed the rulers, and then he went to people that were willing to learn, that were willing to be educated. And even today, he is doing the same thing. He will bypass the pastors, the elders, the quote unquote doctors of philosophy and religion or theology, and will go with people that want to be taught and that are humble enough to learn and to follow what he is doing, what he is saying. And that's the same way in that time he has done. By no means does Jesus prefer uneducated people or illiterate people. Yes, he can take an illiterate person and teach that person to read maybe like in a day or two, but he would want somebody who's already been willing to learn and is already learning and know so they can do the work more efficiently because he wants us to do our parts. And but when people that are learn are refusing to learn from Jesus Christ, then he had no choice than to look for those that are unlearned or uneducated, but are willing to learn from him. And that is the case that he did with the 12 disciples. Christ was the light of the world. Actually, I should say one more thing. Working for God is means you're constantly learning. You cannot be ignorant. If you're working for God, you're not gonna be ignorant because if you're working for Him, that means you're willing to be taught. So you're gonna learn many things. And actually, you might even learn more than those that are in the world that are quote unquote doctors of philosophy. You know, and there is a book called Great Controversy Between Christ and Satan. In that book, I think there was a chapter where it talks about a young child who actually was having a conversation with a Catholic priest, and the priest could not answer the questions because the little child was studying his Bible, while the priest was holding on to tradition and couldn't gainsay what the little child was saying. And so, when you work for God, you will learn. You will be more wise than those that are quote unquote wise people on this earth. Anyways, Christ was the light of the world. He was the fountain of all knowledge. He was able to qualify the unlearned fishermen to receive the high commission he would give them. The lessons of truth given these lowly men were of mighty significance. They were to move the world. It seemed but a simple thing for Jesus to connect these humble persons with himself, but it was an event productive of tremendous results. Their words and their works were to revolutionize the world. Jesus did not despise education. The highest culture of the mind, if sanctified through the love and fear of God, receives its fullest approval. The humble men chosen by Christ were with him 3 years, subject to the refining influence of the majesty of heaven. Christ was the greatest educator the world ever knew. Actually, the world did not know Christ, meaning Jesus Christ was the greatest educator ever lived on this planet. That's what I mean by that. But of course, the world did not know Jesus Christ. Neither did they accept him. Even his own people rejected him, didn't know him. So how would the world know him in a sense? God will accept the youth with their talent and their wealth of affection if they will consecrate themselves to him. They may reach to the highest point of intellectual greatness, and if balanced by religious principle, they can carry forward the work which Christ came from heaven to accomplish, and in thus doing, be co-workers with the master. So imagine you have the greatest physician, the greatest physicist in your town, the greatest musician in your town, the greatest mathematician, or anything that you think of as the greatest, and they want to teach you something. And you know that you know a lot. You've also been exposed to it and you've got your PhD, but they are just higher than you are. And they're willing to impart knowledge into you. Would you reject it? And I think that's the same case for Christ. He came to impart knowledge. I mean, there is nothing on earth, no question on earth that you could ask him that he is not able to answer. Not a question. Actually, if you read the Bible, every single question that you have can be answered from the Bible perspective. Want to talk about a remedy for fear? Go to the Bible. Remedy for race? Go to the Bible. Remedy for hatred? Go to the Bible. Remedy for being a fool? Go to the Bible. I mean, anything you can think of. Death? Go to the Bible. Why shouldn't be eating blood? Go to the Bible. Why shouldn't be wearing jewelry, earrings, piercing? Go to the Bible. Why you shouldn't be piercing your body, tattooing and all that? Go to the Bible. There is not a question. Homosexuality? Go to the Bible. There is not a single question that the Bible doesn't answer. And Jesus said that the Bible actually testifies of him. That means Jesus actually has every single answer that you may have. And of course, this is for the Christian. I don't expect the worldlings to follow in that path, but it is for any educated or uneducated people. They can learn from the Bible, and I'm sure if they learn from the Bible, they will know much more than those that are supposedly called philosophers, because there are some questions that you cannot ever answer unless from the Bible. People may ask. I may ask a person, how do we get the rainbow, in the sky? How do we get the rainbow? And they might give me all the chemical reaction and the physics behind it when the sun hits the rain, and you have all of these colors that come out. But if I ask them that question, what is the purpose of the rainbow? Then you can't answer that question unless you go to the Bible, you know. Why do we have 7 days in a week? You know, you have to go to the Bible for that to find out. People have tried to make a 10-day week. Friends tried to make a 10-day week to define the Bible. People were getting sick. They couldn't handle it because God knows that 7 days a week is what you need for your body to be in good health. Yes, anything shorter than that would not be good. Anything more than that would not be good. So, if you open your heart to Christ and read His Word, you will know more than those so-called philosophers even of today, the PhDs people. There is nothing wrong with having a PhD. No, 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 that's not the case. Nothing wrong with having a PhD. Actually, I want one day I would like to get a PhD. There's nothing wrong with having a PhD or master's. But when you elevate your PhD above the Bible, then that's when the Satan comes in and say, you know what, that's a good agent for myself. Because if Jesus Christ gets that person first, I'm gonna lose some very smart people. So, yes, even though it's good to be educated, but Christ wants to teach us certain things that we would never understand on this planet. The students at our college, meaning so far she's talking about Seventh day Adventist College, have valuable privileges not only of obtaining a knowledge of the sciences, but also of learning how to cultivate and practice virtues which will give them symmetrical characters. They are God's responsible moral agents. The talents of wealth, station, and intellect are given of God in trust to men for his wise improvement. These varied trusts he has distributed proportionate, proportionately, proportionately to the known powers and capacities of his servants to everyone his work. The giver expects return corresponding to the gift. The humblest gift is not to be despised or left inactive. The little rivulet does not say, I will not flow along my narrow channel because I am not a mighty river. The spires of grass do not refuse to grow because they are not forest trees. The lamp does not refuse to give it little light because it is not a star. The moon and stars do not refuse to shine because they have not the brilliant light of the sun. Every person has his own peculiar sphere or invocation. Those who make the most of their God given opportunities will return to the giver in their improvement and interest proportionate to the entrusted capital. And of course, whatever you have, you need to work it out. You have money, you also want to work it out. You want to put some interest into your money. And what that does is, in the future, when you get more than what you put. And so for God, it's the same. God gave us many things. Uh, I think for me, He gives me the gift of languages. Or the gift of tongues. Not speaking in tongues, because I don't do that. The gift of tongues, meaning I can learn many languages. I think that's one of the gifts that God has given me. And I have been using that a lot of times. Um, Preaching in different languages, I have been doing that. Because actually, English actually is my third language. And so, and I've also preached in other languages than English. And that's actually one thing I think that I have. I also have the gift of examples, I guess, if we put it that way. Meaning, sometimes somebody asks a question and it's hard to answer, then you start to give an example. Because it's a spiritual question, then what I do is to make it easier, I go with a literal application, meaning or a human term that they can understand. And then if they understand the human term, then I take it up to the spiritual term. And so I think that those are gifts that I may have. At least I've been using them a lot and it's been very successful. Praise God. And so I think that's what God has given for me. And I use it all the time whenever I have to. And so for you, it might be something different. It might be playing the piano or guitar or singing or going out the door and make friends. And so everything that we have, God has given us is to be used, or actually can be used, but should be used for His glory and to bring more souls to Him. Because in the end, He wants everyone to be saved. That's why it says in John 3, verse 16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, so that whosoever, meaning anyone who believes in Him, should not perish, but have eternal life. And so ultimately, God doesn't want anybody to die. He wants everyone to live happily ever after. And that's going to be the only truest happily ever after life that somebody can have. The Lord does not reward, and sometimes people actually, because they don't know, because they can sing, because they cannot sing, but they have another ability, they decide to reject what they have to try to do something else. What I would say to them is, strengthen what you have. It is the best thing you can do. I don't have a voice for singing, but I am very easy at speaking in public. I don't mind. Even in my first time, actually, I went to Florida in February, and I'm a total visitor. And I went to the church with my sister on Saturday morning, and there was supposed to be someone, I guess the youth pastor, to come and do the lesson or whatever he was doing. And I was sitting there with the people, and there was nothing being done. They were all sitting down. It was like almost, it was 9:45, almost 10. I think they started at 10. And I'm just sitting, and I said, okay, you know what? I don't like to just sit and not do anything. So I started conversing with them. I said, hey guys, how you guys doing? My name is Mario, and this is my sister here. And I started to have a conversation with everybody. And at 10 o'clock, I said to myself, at 10 o'clock, if he doesn't come, then I'll just go ahead and do something. And that's one of the gifts that I have, is when I'm in church, I don't care what church I go to. If there is nothing that is being done, I'm gonna get up and do something. It may be awkward for some people, but to me, it just makes perfect sense. So each person have a gift that they can use, and but um, don't demean what you have because you want something else. You have to be very meticulous about what you have and use it in all the meticulous way and delineate it, until you can get into a deeper application of it. So go into great details with your strength. Use it all the time, you know. And that's what I mean by meticulating or delineating it, to go in detail with it. And because you may start doing something and then you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to understand it in greater detail. I'm going to delineate that gift and see what I can use it on any occasion that I can. And that's how you get better at it. So, just a tip for anyone who's listening: the Lord does not reward the great amount of labor. He does not regard the greatness of the work so much as the fidelity with which it is done. The good and faithful servants are rewarded. As we cultivate the powers God has given us here, we shall increase in knowledge and perception and be enabled to comprehend and value the immortal life. Those who have abused their God given privileges in this life and have been content with their ignorance, having their minds completely occupied with subjects of trivial value to themselves or others, will not comprehend personal responsibility, subdue evil tendencies, and strengthen high resolves for a purer, higher, holier life. The youth should be learners for the next world. Perseverance in the acquisition of knowledge, controlled by the fear and the love of God, will give them an increased power for good in this life, and those who have made the most of their privileges to reach the highest attainments here will take these valuable acquisitions with them into the future life. They have sought and obtained that which is imperishable, the capability to appreciate the glories that eye had not seen nor ear heard, will be proportionate to the attainments which reached in the cultivation of the faculties in this life. Those who will empty their hearts of vanity and rubbish through the grace of God may purify the chambers of the mind and make it a storehouse of knowledge, purity, and truth. And it will be continually reaching beyond the narrow boundaries of worldly thought into the vastness of the infinite. The justice and mercy of God will be unfolded to the moral perceptions. The grievous character of sin with its result will be discerned. The character of God, his love manifested in giving his Son to die for the world, and the beauty of holiness are exalted themes for contemplation. These will strengthen the intellect and bring men into close communion with the Infinite One. And so, uh, as I mentioned earlier, what you have, use it. And some people actually, what they do is what they have, they use it, but they are using it with complaints. You know, they are using it with complaints. And when you complain about things, that's actually not a good thing for God because God hates people complaining. And I used to do that actually before. Um, and no, I didn't complain about using my gift. That wasn't the case. I was complaining about other things until I read the book of Job. Now I made a series on the book of Job on my Facebook, uh, but I didn't make one on YouTube. And in the book of Job, when I read the book of Job, and I saw what I saw in that book, that I decided to stop complaining altogether. Yes, I decided to stop complaining altogether. And so when God rewards those that are, when He says to them, "Enter thou, well done, thou good and faithful servant," you have been You have used you have been good in a little, and I will make you ruler of many things. I'm just paraphrasing everything. Enter down to the joy of thy Lord. When he rewards them, it's not because of the degree of what they have done, but with the character that they have done. Did they do it out of love? Did they do it happily? Did they do it with complaint? And so, anyhow, you're gonna get your reward, whether it's good or bad. And so God is looking for people that are willing to be educated from Jesus Christ. And of course, Christ will teach us everything. And of course, when He teaches us everything, we will be able to withstand the wiles of the devil. Actually, as I mentioned that, let me show you what I'm talking about. Because when Christ teaches you, this is what you get to do. This is what you get to do. When Christ teaches you, He puts on you certain things that you would have never thought about. Now, here's the thing. When Christ teaches you, basically everything He is teaching you is protecting you from Satan. Watch this. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And when Jesus Christ is teaching you, He's protecting you from the wiles of the devil, actually. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with the truth, and having on the blaze and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayers and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. That's in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 9 to verse 18. So, God's word is here to, one, educate us, and two, be an armor for us against Satan and his dominions. So, why would people not want to learn from Christ? And of course, going back to the book, to John chapter 3, in that chapter when Jesus said, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him would not perish but have everlasting life." On that chapter, He was talking to a doctor of the law, Nicodemus, well respected among all Pharisees and Sadducees. Yet, He was talking to Nicodemus about things that he should have known but didn't know it. But we see Nicodemus was willing to learn actually. At first, he came to Jesus at night, but later he was open to his vow upon Jesus Christ and even sold his goods to help further the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so, yes, when you give your life to Christ, whether you are uneducated or highly educated, Christ wants them all in his team to win the battle against Satan. And in the end, anyone that actually is with Christ will win the battle. Because actually, Christ came with the battle by himself. He just wants people to work with him because he wants everyone to be saved and not to die. And so today was July 1st, 2020. It's a Wednesday, meaning today is the middle of the week. And tomorrow I'm gonna make one more video because on Friday I may not be able to make a video. And so today we're looking at fundamentals of Christian education and Jesus Christ an educator. I hope to see you again tomorrow. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I hope to see you again, or if I don't see you tomorrow at all, I hope to see you again when Jesus Christ comes the second time. Until then, bye for now.